So that's me. Okay. Hi, Weola. I wanted to ask and talk about generality versus precision. And just yesterday, I had a session with a guru who really, he really hones in on and accentuates like the general versus precise. And so it got me thinking about my own life and how, you know, there's certain things that I've known that I've wanted. Like maybe I want that specific house on that specific piece of property, or I want that specific car that's that specific color, you know, or I want to eat foods that allow me to weigh this much with this percentage of body fat. You know, like there's really a way to get very specific about a lot of those things. And then when I think about what Abraham has taught us, me, you know, if there's any doubt or wobble in what it is you think you want, or even how you might ascertain it or get it, the best idea is to go general. And until you gain maybe some stability in it or whatnot. And then I think, well, isn't it that actually the precision that we have in things is what allows like the law of attraction party to come on in? Because that's how I feel law of attraction is in my life, where I'm like, I know exactly what I want. And then law of attraction is like, all right, here you go. And so I just like, is it we're being general when we still got a pebble in the shoe, and then we get precise when we like razor in on exactly what it is we want? Or is there something I might even be missing here? I just will stop
there is
there.
plenty here for you. First, we will start with the sentiment of general versus specific, or general versus precise. And we would like to offer you a different perspective. We would like to offer you a perspective of general and precise, general and specific, general and precise, general and specific. You can even say, it is safe to say that the precise is when you zone in and focus so much so that you don't have access to that wider perspective. And that is when your questions are born. That is when the pebble in the shoe gets you to the place of such precision that your clarity of desire is born. You can say that the pebble in the shoe is part of that precision. It is part of you going from some kind of general place into tipping point, so you can start asking the question, and the question starts with curiosity, and curiosity brings your attention to a variety of things. You can even say that curiosity brings you, or goes moment by moment by moment. More curious you get, more excited you get to point your attention, more specific or more precise you get. But what we want you to know that is very valuable, equally valuable part in receiving that which is your desire. And in that part, your tipping point of deciding, or sometimes just going straight into that curiosity part, sometimes you don't see the curious part of it. Sometimes you're not aware of the tipping point, but you always go through it. You always go through that part from being steady into some place of curiosity, and that then after the curiosity follows the pebble in the shoe, because curiosity gets you to point attention, and then while you're pointing attention there is this pebble and this pebble and this pebble and this pebble. In other words, some of the things that you might not really like, or some of the things that bring you a little bit of discomfort, your feeling system tells you that very clearly. And then from that point on, as you are so precise, at the moment where you're so precise about this pebble and this pebble and this pebble and this pebble, in other words, question dance happens sufficiently. It does not have to last long. Sometimes it does last long. In other words, sometimes you bring yourself from curiosity to go even into the place of problem before you start softening it up and go with that place that you call general. But what we want to bring to your attention with even more detail, because your brilliant question is bringing it up, is that you go from curiosity, you observe, you see some pebbles in the shoe, and then based off of how sensitive you are through your feeling system, how clear you are about the tools to go to that place which you call general, and we call it everything that exists, you then get the clarity through your precision about exactly what is it that you want. And at that moment, if you get to the place where you can release that wanting sooner, which means if you get to place of that precision coming through to be so pointy about this particular desire, to relax it, to loosen it up, and therefore find a tool that can get you to another tipping point, then you can see that which is that desire coming from curiosity, turning into engaging with pebbles in the shoe, turning into the question, turning into desire, turning into that which is the tipping point for you to see discovery of the desire. Then that process goes, and it's rather quick. And sometimes not so quick, because sometimes you'd spend more time about this pebble in the shoe and this pebble in the shoe and this pebble in the shoe. Now, we're not saying go from answer to answer, because that is not how everything that exists works. That is not what you're experiencing. It's a question-answer dance. But what we're saying, find the balance. Use your feeling system, this brilliant tool that you have. Use your mind and your body as the tools that are giving you an opportunity to experience your emotions, to see how sensitive you can get to recognize that you're in the question. Once you get to the place of recognizing that you're in the question, then you have the full power of taking it into the problem, or taking it into, meaning more specific pebble in the shoe, sifting and sorting and organizing and observing and choosing, or you're ready at that moment about clarity of the wanting. And that clarity of the wanting, while on the way of that desire coming to you, is still not that which it is receiving of that in your physicality. It is softer version of focus. Your wanting, we have not said it in this particular way, is a softer version of your question. Your wanting, your desire, is already on a way for you to experience that clarity in your physicality, but that clarity of the question has at the end tail that wanting. So if you do not want to go back and observe more of that which is question, you want to release the wanting sooner than later. And so you go about the place of steady, and at some point you start realizing through your sensing system that you're getting curious, that you're even observing certain things, and then you start making preferences, curiosity, and then from curiosity making preferences by observing pebbles in the shoe, and then from that observing you get to the point where you're so clear about that pointing that that births desire, that clarifies the wanting, and that clarity is, as we often say, emotionless. That moment of switching from that clarity of question into the place of using, that is the time for you to use any kind of tool that is at your hand to get to the place of a softer, that which you call general stance. And so as you get to that place of general, when the general becomes more dominant, not versus pointing, not versus that which is precise, not versus that which is specific, but it becomes predominant. In other words, the other desire is not out, the other desire is not excluded, but it's so much softer that it feels like that. It's so much so that it feels like a gentle, soft reminder of what your desire is. Once you get in that place of steady, you can even say that the place of general is the place of steady. From that one tipping point to another tipping point, all those beautiful positive emotions are in that place. And then more you get comfortable about this precision, generality, precision, general, precise, general, specific, general, question, answer, focus, process of unfocusing, dance, then you understand that nothing goes against one another. There is really no this versus that, but it's all coming together in a beautiful blended dance that you are. and then you really get to experience predominantly satisfying life.
Yeah. I have more, but I'll let the others go and maybe you'll come back. I love that. Thank you.
Allow yourself to see the clarity between that which you call precise and general. This new stands for you, understanding equal value between the two, no separation between the two, no desire to label which one it is at this now or this time for too much. Once you see them as equal, you don't even pay attention. That is the time when you live beyond really your mind, body, and emotions.
I guess I gotta ask this. When it comes to attracting what we want, I feel like you can't really attract what you want when you're general. You must be specific. And that's not a problem. That's magic to me.
The way that you're describing this is you are using the word attracting. Now you can use it in a variety of ways, but the way that it's right now being used, that attracting, you general place of receiving, and that which is place attracting, you are putting attracting in a place of question, where the attracting is really receiving. Attracting is really receiving. Attracting is really receiving. So you cannot sift and sort in your question and attract. You can start that which is the process of receiving, and that is the only way you can start the process of receiving, by getting clarity of the question. But the attraction starts from the clarity of question into the place of receiving, 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 receiving. And in order to receive, you want to get yourself in the steady, not in the steady unfocused or general, not in the steady precise, but the steady dance between the two. So you understand that when you're predominantly in a place of general, you receive. And that you know that when you're predominantly in a place of focused, you're getting clarity about what you want to receive.
Yes, 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 and yes. Thank you. Thank you.